While the strait is closed, some American businesses will suffer. And a frustrated president posted today, Europe is desperate for energy, and yet the United Kingdom refuses to open North Sea oil, one of the greatest oil fields in the world. Tragic. No matter what Europe does, gas prices in the U.S. may not peak for weeks.
This is the road to more secure and lower long-term energy supplies, but it does mean higher prices today, probably means higher prices for a few more weeks.
Third U.S. aircraft carrier now sailing towards the Middle East.
What we're watching is not just another Middle East flare-up. It is a test of leverage. After peace talks between the United States and Iran stalled, President Trump announced a blockade targeting Iranian ports and shipping access tied to the Strait of Hormuz. Then came the mixed messages: public threats, hints of resumed talks, rising fears over mines and fast attack boats, and a parallel diplomatic track involving Israel, Lebanon, and Hezbollah. The result is a story where military pressure, oil markets, and regional diplomacy are now tangled together in real time.
Turns out the U.S. president not a fan of a key part of the U.S. delegation's offer to the Iranians, the part where the negotiators told Iran, you just can't enrich uranium for 2 decades. President Trump told the New York Post this afternoon, I've been saying they can't have nuclear weapons, so I don't like the 20 years. But despite that, he still thinks that a deal with Iran is possible by the end of this week.
That line matters because it exposes the contradiction at the heart of this crisis. Washington is applying military and economic pressure while still signaling that a deal remains possible. The New York Post reported Trump saying new talks could be happening over the next 2 days, and that he did not like the reported idea of allowing Iran back to enrichment after 20 years. In other words, maximum pressure outside the room and unresolved red lines inside it.
Iran back to the negotiating table? Is it to open up the strait so that gas prices ultimately come down?
Maybe everything. I mean, both of those things, certainly, and more. We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen.
Dozens of countries sought ways to restart vital energy shipments through the Strait of Hormuz as U.S. President Donald Trump and Iran traded escalating threats, driving oil prices sharply higher and deepening anxiety across global markets. In a social media post on Thursday, Trump warned Iran to make a deal before it is too late and shared what he claimed to be a video of a U.S. strike on a newly constructed bridge linking Tehran to the northwestern suburb of Karaj. This eyewitness footage shows smoke rising from the B1 highway bridge. Iranian state media said the unfinished bridge was hit on Thursday, killing 8 people and wounding dozens. Iran's foreign minister condemned the attack, saying the strikes on civilian infrastructure would not force Iran to surrender.
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
In a speech the night before, Trump repeated threats against Iran's civilian power plants and said U.S. forces would intensify operations over the coming weeks, drawing vows of retaliation from Tehran. Nearly 5 weeks into the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, the conflict is spreading instability across the region. Iran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz has disrupted a fifth of the world's global oil and liquefied natural gas trade. Britain's Foreign Minister Yvette Cooper chaired talks with around 40 countries on restoring freedom of navigation.
We have seen Iran hijack an international shipping route to hold the global economy hostage.
But diplomats say no agreement has been reached. Iran, meanwhile, warns the strait could remain closed long-term to the United States and Israel. The standoff has sent oil prices soaring. U.S. crude jumped more than 11% Thursday, while Brent surged nearly 8% as traders priced in prolonged supply disruptions. One analyst warned prices could climb above $150 a barrel if shipping is not restored soon. Attention is now turning to the United Nations, where the Security Council is set to vote on a Bahrain-backed resolution to protect commercial shipping in the strait. Yet veto-wielding China has made it clear its opposition to authorizing any use of force.
And this is where the stakes stop being regional and become global. Nearly a fifth of the world's oil and gas normally moves through the Strait of Hormuz. Reuters reported that 20,000 seafarers and around 1,600 vessels were effectively stuck in the Gulf, while the BBC noted oil jumped back above $100 after the blockade announcement before easing on hopes of more talks. The message from markets was simple. Traders believe this crisis can still de-escalate, but they do not trust it yet.
This is a historic opportunity. We understand we're working against decades of history and complexities that have led us to this unique moment. And the opportunity here, I know some of you are shouting questions about ceasefires. This is a lot more than just about that. This is about bringing a permanent end to 20 or 30 years of Hezbollah's influence in this part of the world and not just the damage it's inflicted on Israel, the damage it's inflicted on the Lebanese people. That is the hope here today. That is what we are beginning to work. We are joined by excellent people who will be in a position to obviously take this back to their respective capitals. This is a process, not an event. This is more than just one day. This will take time, but we believe it is worth this endeavor, and it's a historic gathering that we hope to build on. And the hope today is that we can outline the framework upon which a permanent and lasting peace can be developed, so that, as I said, the people of Israel can live in peace, and the people of Lebanon can live not just in peace, but the prosperity and security that they deserve. Okay? Thank you.
At first glance, the Lebanon track may seem separate. It isn't. In the transcript you provided, Fox framed the State Department meeting as part of a wider effort to deal with Hezbollah, while U.S.-Iran tensions remained unresolved. Reuters and the State Department both confirm a rare and significant diplomatic meeting. Israel and Lebanon held direct talks in Washington, with the U.S. pushing for direct negotiations and Israel pressing the issue of Hezbollah's disarmament. So while warships faced off near Hormuz, diplomats were also trying to redraw the regional balance on land.
What I will say, Brett, is that I 100% agree with the president on the fact that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. I've seen that just in the negotiation that we've had over the last couple of days, that these are tough negotiators, but they're fundamentally the kinds of people where them having a nuclear weapon would impose terrible costs on the entire world. If they're willing to engage in economic terrorism on the entire world, what would it mean? What leverage would they have if they had a nuclear bomb in Tehran? That's not an outcome that is acceptable to us or really should be acceptable to anybody. So I 100% support the president's goals here to keep nuclear weapons, to keep the worst weapons of war out of the hands of the Iranians.
The administration's message has been remarkably consistent. Iran has less leverage than it thinks. But the transcript also reveals something more subtle: uncertainty inside that confidence. Fox's own guests debated whether the blockade would force Tehran back to the table or simply create a dangerous commercial precedent in one of the most important waterways on Earth. AP confirmed that the military implementation was narrower than Trump's original "any and all ships" language. That gap between political theater and operational reality is one of the most important truths in this story.
President Trump's plan to use force not to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but to close it to all shipping, has horrified and mystified America's erstwhile allies.
Oil prices for benchmark Brent crude fell nearly 3% Monday afternoon to near $100 a barrel. This comes in part after U.S. President Donald Trump repeated his call for help to unblock the Strait of Hormuz after some vessels sailed through it.
We strongly encourage other nations whose economies depend on the Strait far more than ours. You know, we get less than 1% of our oil from the Strait, and some countries get much more. Japan gets 95%, China gets 90%, many of the Europeans get quite a bit, South Korea gets 35%. So we want them to come and help us with the Strait.
The president's announced blockade is already rattling the economy. Oil prices climbing back above $100 a barrel overnight.
Controlled once it starts moving through sea lanes, energy markets, and proxy battlefields. The transcript you provided captures the atmosphere perfectly. Mixed messages, layered diplomacy, military signaling, and a constant undertow of uncertainty. But the verified reporting adds the missing perspective. The blockade is real, yet narrower than the rhetoric. The oil shock is serious, yet reversible. The diplomacy is active, yet fragile. And every side in this standoff is trying to project strength while quietly testing the limits of escalation. For now, the Strait of Hormuz remains more than a waterway. It is a pressure gauge for the entire region. If talks resume and ships move again, this may be remembered as a brutal show of leverage that stopped short of a wider war. If either side miscalculates, it could become the moment a fragile truce collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. The next clues won't come from one headline. They'll come from tanker traffic, oil prices, satellite images, official statements, and whether the diplomats keep walking back into the room.